What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Solitaire Chess. Today we're going to be looking at a game played by Paul Morphy. He was white playing against Alexander Meek. This is from 1855, and we have a King's Gambit accepted. So it should be a very interesting game. Usually the King's Gambit leads to some pretty exciting positions, especially when it's played by a strong player. Now, if you're new to Solitaire Chess, the way this works is you have to figure out what move you would play in each position, and then we compare that move to what was actually played in the game by Morphy, and if you matched up with his move correctly, you get a certain number of points, and at the very end of the game, we tally up all the points and see what your score is. So I'm going to be doing this along with you guys, recording my answers and my scores over here on a piece of paper. I am going to be talking through my thought process as we go through the game. There was some different opinions on whether I should do it during the game or at the end. Most people seem to think that because they're trying to learn, it makes sense to hear my thought process as we go through the game. So I think that's what I'm going to do. But make sure you pause if you don't want to hear my thought process before you think. So as we get to each new move, you can pause, think through what you'd play, and then you can compare that to my thought process. And this is really a fun and good way to improve as a chess player. So having said that, let's go ahead and get started. So this is the starting position, and let's start thinking through this. All right, so I know from just experience playing the King's Gambit that the main line here is just to play knight to f3. That being said, there is this bishop c4 line, which is pretty aggressive. You allow the queen h4 check, you tuck your king over on f1, and then you gain a tempo on the queen later with knight to f3. Now, I don't know off the top of my head which version Morphy preferred. So really it's a toss-up here between these two moves. I'm going to just go with the most common because I don't really know. And so I'll say knight f3 as my guess. So I'm going to write that down. And let's see what actually was played in the game. All right, so he did play knight f3. So I'm going to get 5 points for that. So give yourself 5 points if you said knight to f3. And oh, it says you get full credit for bishop c4. So cool. So if you said bishop c4, you also get 5 points, which makes sense because like both of those moves are very playable. I think this is probably considered a little bit better, but this leads to some really wild positions. All right. Let's keep going. So black plays the move g5. All right. So again, it's our turn to think through what did Morphy play here. So I believe that one of the main lines is h4. I think you can also just kind of ignore that and keep developing. And I imagine probably d4 would be playable too, but I think bishop c4 and h4 are a little bit more common. I believe h4 is the main line. Yeah, again, it really, I feel like it could be any of these three moves. The point behind h4 is we're just trying to kind of undermine these pawns here. And because this pawn is actually pretty annoying, we'd like to get rid of this guy so that we can probably just play d4 and recapture this. And sometimes after this, the knight hops in there and you can really just start attacking the black king. So I'm going to say h4. Could be wrong on this one, but I'll go with h4. And let me check. All right, bishop c4 was actually played in the game. So let's see if I get any partial credit for h4. No partial credit for h4. All right, so bishop c4, and I'm going to give myself 0 on that one. And black plays bishop to g7. Okay. So let's think through here. I mean, again, h4 is still on the table because the point is if this happens, you have knight to g5 and you're putting some pressure on f7. Also, we can just play d4 and take over the center. I think the issue that I'm seeing, though, is that what do we do after g4 now? If we don't play h4 and this happens, I don't know where the knight's going to go, right? Because we can't go here because the bishop doesn't really make sense to go backwards when you play the King's Gambit. I guess there's a line where you actually just allow this to get captured. So maybe something like castles, g4, what is it? Is it knight c3? I can't remember. Where you just sacrifice the knight and then you end up with the queen and the rook lined up here. That's an option too. So there's a lot of ways that this could go down. I'm going to say h4 again. I think this is a good move for white. So let's go with h4. I don't know if that's right, but we'll just try it again. h4. All right. And hey, there we go. 5 points. So Morphy did play h4. So 5 points if you said h4. And let's see. And it does say you get full credit if you said to castle. So that's the other main line, I guess, just castling. And so if you said castles, you also get 5 points. All right. G4. So H4 is played and G4. All right, so let's think through what did Morphy play here. Yeah, I think this one is pretty straightforward. The whole point right behind playing H4 is that we wanted to follow up with knight G5, put some pressure on the F7 square. So don't really think it makes sense to go backwards. At this point, castling and sacrificing the knight doesn't make sense anymore because we've weakened our kingside with this H move. So yeah, I think it's got to be knight to G5. So I'm going to say knight to G5. And let's see. Knight to G5 is the correct move, and you get 5 points if you said that. So 5 points for knight to G5. It does say you get some partial credit for knight to G1, 3 points partial credit, but not as good as the best move here, knight to G5. All right, so knight to G5, knight to H6. All right, back to us again. What do we think Morphy played here? So obviously we can't take here anymore, or we could, but it doesn't make as much sense now because black has it defended with the knight. It seems like we need to get some more pieces into the attack. So probably D4 or knight C3 or D3 are the moves that are coming to mind. I guess you could castle too, which is not completely out of the question. Personally, I think I like D4 because I really want to get this bishop into the game. If something like F6 happens, I think I'd be willing to sacrifice the knight at that point by maybe just taking here. Yeah, because then we can probably just take here, which looks really nice with the bishop coming in. So definitely leaning towards D4. I guess D3 makes a little bit of sense, but it just seems too passive in the spirit of the King's Gambit. So I'm going to say D4. I'm going to write down D4. Let's see if that is correct. D4 is the move. All right, so 6 points if you said D4. Give myself 6 points. And it says you do get 2 points partial credit for E5. Interesting. Tossing away a pawn. Okay, well, 2 points partial credit for that. I'm not sure why, but anyway, D4 was played, and black plays the move F6. All right. So, like I mentioned before, I think... I mean, actually, we have to sacrifice the knight at this point, right? Like, there's no... Even if we wanted to save the knight, we can't. Because if we go back, it gets captured. If we take here, it gets captured. And, of course, if we go here, it gets captured. So, which is fine. I was planning on that anyway. So, I think we just take this pawn. And now, if this happens, we take with the bishop, which hits the queen. The queen is actually trapped, which means bishop F6. But then we can take the knight. And there is this check, but I'm not super concerned about that. We'll probably just move our king up here. And the game goes on. Looks pretty crazy. Both kings are kind of exposed, but that looks pretty good. So definitely considering bishop takes f4. I'm just kind of scanning around if there are any other moves that make sense. Maybe knight c3. No, no, that can't be as good. All right, it's got to be bishop takes f4. I'm going to write down bishop takes f4. And that's correct. And you get 5 points for bishop takes f4. All right. F takes g5. So we did play this. And then f takes g5. Go ahead and think through. What's the move now? All right. I believe, like I mentioned, taking with the bishop makes the most sense because of the awkwardness of the queen. We could take this way too, which forces the knight to go to f7. Takes, and then maybe take the pawn or castles. Also going to get a nice attack, but it seems like this just wins back the piece right away. Bishop f6 takes, check, king here. And I mean, I like that. Queen f6. Yeah, we can just play like rook f1 or something. Oh, queen f6 actually hits the bishop. Okay, but we could play bishop e3 and defend everything. Maybe even queen f1. Lots of options, but yeah, I think bishop takes g5. I'm going to say bishop takes g5. Still some things to think through going forward, but it seems like this is a good starting move. All right. And that is the correct move. So give yourself 5 points if you said bishop takes g5. And it says 2 points partial credit if you said capturing with the pawn instead. 2 points for that, 5 points for the bishop. And black responds bishop to f6. Okay. So again, I don't think it really makes too much sense to deviate from this line. I think that's the whole point behind what we were doing. I'm just checking. I mean, we do have to be a little careful. Like if we played king f1, I could see that we could get into some trouble with the queen coming in. But as long as we play king to e2, leave the square open for a rook or a queen, I think our king is going to be just fine. Yeah, so I'm going to say bishop takes h6. Let me write that down. And let's see. Oh, the move is not bishop takes h6. It's queen to d2. I did not even consider that move. Queen to d2. Interesting. So here's a good example of I'm just thinking about recovering my piece. Like I sacked a piece. I don't want to be down a piece. Like let's get the piece back when I can. And Morphy is thinking in the spirit of the King's Gambit, who cares about a piece? Like it's a piece, whatever. I'm just going to, go for something more active, get my queen on a better square. Interesting. I think that's a good learning opportunity. So queen to d2 is 7 points. If you said queen to d2, you do get 4 points partial credit for bishop takes h6. So I'll give myself 4 points. And it mentions the line, I'll just go ahead and show you. It mentions the line check, king here, and bishop to g5 check. And black is not that bad off. Now, I was thinking king to e2 is what I would have played. And I'm curious what black plays here. I mean, I was thinking queen f6, but then we can either slide a queen or a rook over here, or even just retreat this. It's an interesting position. Anyway, in the game, let's see. Yeah, in the game, queen to d2 was played. All right. So 7 points if you said queen to d2. Black plays bishop takes g5, and it's now our turn again. All right, so I don't really think we want to trade queens. That makes no sense whatsoever, right? Because black's king is exposed. We've already sacrificed a piece. Of course, trading queens is just going to help black. So we've got to take it this way. Unless there's some other crazy move. I don't believe so. So I'm going to say h takes g5. And that is the correct move. 5 points for that one. If you said h takes g5. Okay, wow. So there's a little note here that says you can accept full credit if you said queen takes g5, but only if you saw this line. Queen takes g5, queen takes g5, h takes g5, knight to f7, followed by g6, which is interesting because you can't take here because you've got the check and then you're winning the rook. Oh yeah, that's the line that it wanted you to see. This, this, and this. Wow. Okay, so that's a playable alternative, but you had to see that whole line, which I did not see, actually. I stopped calculating early. I said, oh, it's a queen trade, and I just didn't even think that there's this idea of g6 afterward. And actually, I'm just curious, what happens if black just moves their knight somewhere? Yeah, the idea is that we're going to play g7 and get a queen. Wow, that's a nice line. Sorry, I didn't mean to go all the way back. Nice line there. Okay, so yeah, full credit if you said that. So 5 points basically for either of these moves, but only if you saw the full line on queen takes g5, which I did not, but I said the right move anyway. So 5 points for that. All right, black plays knight to f7, and here we go. So I'm very tempted to just take the knight because black's going to lose castling rights, which looks like a very nice thing. And it's also putting the king on a a file where I can easily attack it with the queen or rook. I guess the alternative would be, since I just saw the line that the book told me, g6, which I don't know that I would have saw that, but now that I'm looking at it, g6 actually looks pretty strong here as well for similar ideas that we just mentioned. Although it's not quite the same, is it? Because the queen actually defends the rook. So I'm just thinking of this. We take here. Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same thing. So I guess, let's see. What if we did this? Black can probably just defend. Maybe queen e7. I don't know if they could get away with castling as well. I think we need to lure the king out. In a real game, if I wasn't just doing a solitaire or chess, I would probably spend quite a bit of time on this moment, because you really need to think through this a lot. Like, what's going to happen after this trade? Yes, you can play check. The king's going to move somewhere. Let's just say it goes here. And how do we follow up? I don't see anything immediate, which makes me wonder if this is the correct move. Like, maybe we just need to develop. Although this is being threatened. No, it's not, because we can throw in the check. It's being threatened this way, I guess. Yeah, this is a tough position, actually. I'm not sure what the move is. My instinct is to say, like, just lure the king out, lose the castling rights, but then there's not very many pieces left. So I don't know. I'm going to say bishop takes f7, but I'm not really feeling super confident about this move. But let's see if that's correct. Okay, it is bishop takes f7 check. All right, so that is the move. 5 points if you said bishop takes f7 check. All right, let's keep going. And I assume black is going to recapture. Yes, black recaptures, king takes f7. All right. Back to us. So I'm thinking of castling because we get the rook to hit the king. I'm thinking of queen to f4. I'm even thinking of just developing knight to c3. So these are really my, actually there's like 5 potential moves. No, I'd probably want to castle. I don't think I would play rook f1. I think I would rather castle, because then if I ever need to use this rook, it can come over because my king's not going to be blocking it. So I'd rather my king be on g1 than e1. Seems pretty safe here. I know that this is kind of open over here, but black doesn't have a way to take advantage of that right now. So castling looks pretty good. Queen to f4 also looks pretty nice, and then I can take this. The problem with that is then d5, and I'm losing a tempo, which is a little bit risky, although maybe that makes sense to get my queen over here to the h file and try to infiltrate this way. Knight to c3, just bringing in another piece and getting ready to even castle queenside, and then put this rook here also looks pretty nice. So a lot of good moves here. Queen f4, I imagine the king would go to g7. I don't want to take that because I don't feel like I have enough. I feel like I need more pieces, which makes me think knight c3 is a good move. Castles, king g7, knights. Yeah, I'm going to say knight c3. I just feel like we don't have quite enough firepower to get the job done. So let's say knight c3. The idea of having the knight potentially be ready to help us, either with d5 or at some point coming to e4, and also getting ready to castle and getting an extra rook involved. So knight c3 is my vote. Let's see what Morphy... Nope, he decided on queen f4 check. All right, which was one of the moves we considered, but I just wasn't feeling like it was enough. 7 points if you said queen f4 check. Oh, wow, it says no credit for castles. No credit for castling, because after king g7, black just defends themselves, okay? And knight c3 doesn't even get a mention, so I don't know. Put 0 for knight c3. Maybe we'll check this moment with Stockfish later. But anyway, queen to f4. King to g8 is played. Interesting. I was expecting, I guess king g7, you have queen e5. I didn't see that before, so maybe that was the point, queen e5. All right, so king g8 is played. Okay. Well, of course, we can take the pawn. Doesn't seem like it's really worth it, because d5 is going to let black get some more pieces into the action with tempo. I don't like that. maybe now you play knight c3. You just did this first and then you develop in castle. Or do you bring the rook over? Threatens the immediate checkmate. Black could pretty easily deal with that with one of these two moves. Let's just say queen e7. We could take this pawn. Knight c6. It looks like black's doing okay in that position. What if we played g6? I don't really know what's the idea, but let's just think about it. We could trade. And then we could go check. Take some more pawns. That looks pretty good, actually. What if black plays something? No, we're threatening checkmate. Okay, at g6. What if queen e7? We could take. I mean, this just looks like it's really opening up black's king. I don't see a concrete follow-up. That's my only concern, but surely Morphy saw something. So yeah, let's say g6. We'll say g6. All right. Wow, the magazine gives like a whole bunch of variations that black could have played instead of king g8. Like, yeah, like 5 different variations. Wow. Okay. All right. The move is castles. I'm just not feeling this one. Okay, castles was the move played. 5 points if you said castle kingside. Let's see if there's any. Nope. G6 isn't even mentioned. All right. 0-0 on the last 2 for me. All right, so castles is played, and black plays queen to e7. All right, what are we going to do now? Well, again, I feel like we need more pieces, so I want to play knight c3. I don't want to take that pawn because knight c6, it's just a pawn, and now black gets time to develop, and my queen is far away from the king. I don't want that pawn. We could take this pawn now because d5 is no longer an option because we take the bishop. So this is a move. Or knight c3. I mean, I don't really see anything else. I see knight c3 and queen takes g4. That's it. So which one? Do we really want to waste time grabbing pawns? I don't think so. I think we want to play knight c3. There's an even, like, a really nice, just immediate threat. Yeah, let's go knight c3. I'm going to say knight to c3. And that is the move. All right, finally, Morphy decides to develop. Okay, knight c3, 5 points. Said that. And yeah, it just says white develops and threatens knight d5. All right. Black plays c6. Okay. So deals with the threat of knight to d5. Which makes sense. We can play e5 and come in this way with the knight. We could also bring the rook over. We could also do something like this and get a triple battery going. I really like e5. That looks really nice. Just to get the knight into f6. And also kind of shuts down this because we have the en passant. But 2 moves to get the triple battery is also pretty tempting. So would I rather have a knight on e4 or doubled rooks behind the queen? Both look really good, huh? Which plan did Morphy go for is my question. That knight just looks so good on f6. Just looks really, really good. But I think it's got to be e5. I'm going to say e5. It could be rook f2, but I'm going to say e5. All right. Wow. I was way off. Rook 8, not way off, but I was off. Rook a to e1 was played in the game. Yeah, I mean, it's a good move. I liked those other plans, you know? All right, rook a to e1 is 6 points if you said that move. 4 points partial credit for e5. All right, so I'll give myself 4 points instead of the 6. with the idea, yeah, of knight e4 and knight f6. It says Morphy's found something better. Okay, so something better. All right, let's see what's coming. D6. Okay. Well, it seems like if you're going to play this move, you have to play e5, right? Why else would you play this? Unless you're going to be pushing here. Any other moves? D5, but then e5? I mean, I guess you could do, but the problem is black could just develop or something, right? Bring the knight over to defend or the bishop out or something. This still threatens the knight maneuver. And after d5, I guess you just push the pawn even further and the rook comes in. This is just weird. Like, this move I just don't quite get, to be honest with you guys. So I guess we'll say e5. I'm not sure that I'm really understanding the idea here, but let's try that. Okay, that's the idea. Knight to d5. Yes, that is clever. And it does make sense after you see the idea. Wow, 7 points if you said knight to d5. I mean, I'm just seeing the point now. If he takes the knight, now you have your rook involved. Very, very clever idea. And you're also going for f6. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, good idea. Okay, Morphy, I see what you did there. Knight to d5. Okay. So I'm going to get 0 points. And let's keep going. So knight to d5 is played, and black captures it. All right. This one looks pretty obvious, right? I think we're going to take the pawn. I don't see why not. Yeah, we're going to say e takes d5 on this one. That is correct. 5 points. 5 points if you said e takes d5. Okay. And what did black? Queen to g7. All right. Back to us again. So obvious move looks like rook check. Wait, doesn't that just win the game? Yeah, rook e8 check just wins on the spot. How about you were threatening checkmate? If the queen would have went like somewhere here, you had checkmate there. Wow, really nice. Rook to e8, and it's over. So I guess that's the last move of the game. Let's check that. And that is correct. This person did not resign though, so you get 5 points for rook e8. Okay, give myself 5 points for that. And in the game, they actually played it out. They played queen to f8, and then, well, you guys can see the last move. Queen takes f8, checkmate. Or, oh, that's not what Morphy played. Morphy did not play queen takes f8 checkmate. He played queen f7 checkmate because the queen's pinned. So, but you get full credit. It says 5 points for either of those moves. All right. That's funny. Okay, so that is it. Now it is time to go ahead and sum up all of your points and write down your total score. So I'm going to take a minute and do that, and I will be right back. All right, guys, I just totaled up my score, and I got 69 points, which puts me in the category 2,000 to 2199. So a little bit underrated. That's actually pretty accurate with my actual rating because I did lose some points. So that's pretty close this time. Let me know what you guys got and how it was. Let's actually go back, turn on Stockfish just real quick. I want to go back to that one moment where I was confused, and let's see if Stockfish agrees with Morphy. So we'll go really quickly here. And all right, d4, f6, bishop takes. Stockfish likes it. Stockfish likes it. Oh, you know what? Stockfish actually likes this line. Bishop takes h6, by the way. And after here, king to e2. Yes, which is what I said. Cool. So, and then after this, I'm guessing queen or rook. Oh, bishop e3. It does like just going back. Interesting. All right. So I feel like, okay, pretty good about that idea. But queen to d2. Yeah, Stockfish doesn't like this idea as much. It's because it didn't want black to capture here. It wanted black to just play d5 and go some crazy other route. All right. That's not the line we were looking at. This one. Queen to f4. Okay, bishop takes f7, queen to f4, both good moves. Queen to f4, it does like it. Yeah, Stockfish likes exactly what Morphy did. Castling. Knight to c3. Rook a to e1. Yeah. Stockfish says Morphy was exactly right. Yep. That was the idea. Knight to d5. This was such a... See, this is what I need to improve on, and maybe you guys can use this as a learning opportunity too. When I see something like this in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to consider these moves anymore. I don't even have to think about them. Right? And that's wrong, because if I would have said, well, maybe I can make this work. Maybe I can make this work somehow. Maybe I would have thought of rook a to e1. But as soon as I see this, my brain is like, nope, knight to d5, no longer an option. And I just move on. And sometimes that's a good thing, because I don't waste time in positions where there's not any tactics available, right? I don't waste time thinking about moves that aren't good. But in cases like this, I will miss really nice ideas because I just dismissed it. So there's a fine balance between, don't waste all your time considering crazy moves all the time. Like, you know, I'm really going to try to make queen takes b8 work in this position. Well, you're probably going to waste a bunch of time. That's probably not going to happen. But at the same time, moves like knight d5, you know, if I would have spent a little bit of extra time, maybe I could have come up with this idea. So that's something I know I need to improve on. But it just goes to show how, like, if you do find those ideas, bam, all of a sudden, he kind of accomplished, you know, both of the ideas that I was talking about, like activating the rook, right? Remember I had talked about wanting to activate it like this, and I wanted to do this to get the knight involved. He accomplished both of them at the same time, essentially. He's still threatening knight f6, but he's also activated the rook, and if black takes, well, we saw what happened, right? So really clever idea, and definitely something to be learned here, in my opinion. So hope you guys enjoyed that game, and I'll see you next time in the next episode of Solitaire Chess. As always, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.